We also want to talk about something else that's happening in New York City. Prosecutors there are calling it quits among that city's violent crime wave, according to the New York Post. The staffs of Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg and Brooklyn DA Eric Gonzalez, well, those staff members they keep quitting. Sources tell the Post that they're leaving because of the soft on crime approaches of both of these district attorneys and the state's criminal justice reforms, which aren't really doing anything for the law-abiding citizens in New York.
Oh, and joining us now is Minority Leader of the New York City Council, Councilman Joe Borelli. Joe, always great to have you with us. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, guys.
So first off, your reaction to these assistant district attorneys, clearly they're fed up. They're leaving. There's an exodus. Do you think there'll be any changes at the top? I mean, is it up to now Governor Hochul? She could go in. She could do something and get out DA Alvin Bragg. Do you think there'll be any change as a result here, except for the fact less people will be prosecuted?
No, I don't think there will be any change until the voters react, and the voters are sick of being the victims of crimes, whether they be property crimes against robberies and things like that, or violent crimes in the street. But I'm not surprised these prosecutors are quitting. This would be like if Aaron Judge was hitting home runs every night, and yet the Yankees management were upset with him for getting his job done properly. That's basically what these ADAs are facing when they put people who deserve to be in jail. They get the ire and scorn of their bosses rather than a pat on the back.
Aaron Judge might break a home run record this year, just to point that out too, Joe. Something else too I wanted to talk to you about. New York City, a court there has struck down this attempt by Democrats to allow more than 800,000 non-citizens to vote in local elections there. You are one of the lawmakers fighting back against this. Tell us about this decision.
It's a big win for citizenship. The Democrats tried to rush through a law that they knew was against both the state constitution and against state statutes. New York, blue New York, had actually had a citizenship requirement for voting that other states seek already on the books for a generation. They nonetheless tried to pass this. They tried to enfranchise 800,000 people who aren't necessarily non-citizens. They're foreign citizens. These are people enfranchised to vote elsewhere. Thankfully, the court sided with reality and sided with the plain English reading of our Constitution and laws and decided that this wouldn't be happening.
Yeah, and this is something too, when you guys first brought this challenge and you read the verbatim of the law, clearly says only citizens get to vote. It was one of those things where you're like, okay, great. This is actually seems like a good law and a challenge from folks like yourself to make this painfully obvious point, obvious to everyone else, including the Democrats in New York.
Yeah, it's arguable that the state constitution is vague on whether a citizenship is exclusive requirement for voting. And I would understand if that was the end of it. But we did have this statute that explicitly said if you want to vote in any city, county, town, or village election, you had to be a citizen. Now, the Democrats could come back. Not only can they appeal this ruling, but they can also go to the state legislature and Kathy Hochul in Albany and say, we didn't pass this at the city level. We should pass this at the state level. If they did that, it could change for New York City and other counties and towns around the state, but they know that they would pay a political price to this because there's even Democrats in New York City who oppose this. This wasn't one of those things that was universally popular with Democrats. There are elected leaders from a diverse group of neighborhoods who feel disenfranchised when this went through and that they would be sort of the minority in their own communities.
Right, and all those people who work to come here and get their citizenship legally and put in the time and the work. But speaking of voting, let's talk about this. It's primary day in New York, Joe. I want to focus on the Republican primary for governor for a moment here and put up, the names and the faces. Now, the polls are signaling a close race between Lee Zeldin and Andrew Giuliani right now. I
think right now, one of the things we have to focus on is November and going against Kathy Hochul. Lee raised almost $10 million already, which is like double all of which Republican previous gubernatorial candidates had raised in the past. So I think he's best positioned and best poised to take on Kathy Hochul in November, and that should be the entire focus of the Republican Party. Look, that said, I like Andrew Giuliani. I know him a long time. I like and know Rob Astorino a long time. If they happen to win, we'll get on with them, and we'll do whatever we can to help them win. But I'm with Lee Zeldin. I think he's the best candidate, and I think he's the best position to win in November.
Joe, I got to ask you about some local Staten Island news. This is big stuff here. The Mayor Rudy Giuliani slap on the back. I want to get your take as a Staten Island resident. The suspect has been jailed, faces assault charges there. There's dueling accounts of what went down. But give us your take on what happened.
I campaign at that ShopRite all the time, and I get heckled every now and then. The difference is no one puts their hands on me, because if they did, they wouldn't be around to talk about it.
Joe Borelli,
Ooh.
representing Staten Island. The ShopRite is apparently a political hotbed in Staten Island. I got to get there.
It's a hot spot. Come to ShopRite. Good deals and good politics.
All right.
Sounds like 6'4". No one's going to put their hands on him.
Maybe 6'2", Bianca.
Okay.
You're always giving me too much credit for everything. I appreciate
You
that.
and Joe.
And happy birthday, Joe, coming up. Joe Borelli's got a 40th birthday coming up. We wish him the best.
Thank you very much.
Our baby. Good for you. Thanks, Joe.